All right, listen up. You are using untested weapons against an enemy that, to this point, has been unstoppable. Now, you are heading into unknown territory. And hear me when I say you're going to see things you will not understand. Our enemy has spread throughout the city in a matter of days. There's no telling how far they will spread unless we fight back. Most men never even come close to changing the future. This is the place, and now is the time. Make no mistake, you're the last line of defense. Let's go and do what we came here to do. Serious enough for you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Do I make a good general?
Yep.
It makes me become a ghost already. Look.
I was waiting for a booyah from you guys. Just so quiet. You're so quiet.
No. This is Spectral.
If only you could kick them in a hole, huh?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode in Science Fiction Remnant. I am your host, Spectral. Happy endings.
And the chaos.
And the mad scientist who's cooking up some super science to cause you to shit your pants and run away because those things were nasty. Oh, God.
Oh, it's going to be another one. That's what
Hey, Ray, I actually have a hole where I could kick him up.
Do you?
Wow.
Oh, there we go. What, are you playing Portal in your recording office now?
Awesome. So you know what? With those rocks that are behind us, I can see there's a question popping up.
Yeah.
There's a single question.
What have you guys been watching this week? I know what Robert's been watching.
Well,
because his wife forces him
Star Trek.
He wants to watch anime, and his wife goes, "Nope, you're watching this. Fine, get over here."
Your own demise.
It is very interesting because on my way to the studio today, when I was, I was a little late. Maybe would you say like 30 minutes late for the recording? And on my way here, the reason why I was late is because she wanted to watch Deep Space Nine while I was recording. So I put it on and I sat down and I noticed that I could hear the sound from the TV, which I didn't want it to come through the recording. And she said, "Oh, well, can you get me my headphones and just plug it in?" So I had to like go in, find where the Bluetooth was connected. And then she's actually right now watching it on complete silence from my point of view. But I'm going to tell you pretty much where we're at right now. And if you are if you have not watched Deep Space Nine, I'm just going to give you a spoiler alert, only because this is one of those major points in the whole story. And if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it for you. I would not want someone to spoil it for me, although this has been a long time out. But we are finished season 6. We're in the last season 7. And this is the point where Jaxia Dax dies. And symbiote,
oh my God.
And exactly. And the symbiote was transplanted into another host. So yeah, it was
basically the actress got a better gig, so she buggered off.
Pretty much, yeah. So it is one of those like moments where my wife was just gasping for air when she could not believe that she died. And then now seeing the new Dax come and wondering, has tons of questions because Jaxia Dax, as we know, was married to Lieutenant Commander Worf. And now she has a lot of questions, like what happens when she sees the husband, she's like a 20-year-old now. When she was married, when she was Jaxia Dax, she was an older woman. And now she's like, I guess I wouldn't say little kid compared. And there's tons of questions. So she's like really excited right now. And that's the reason why she could not wait while I was recording to watch the next episode. So as you can tell, aside from the tiny little sliver of anime that I can get to watch, all I'm watching right now. So and that's the end of the spoiler.
Well,
What have you been watching, Chaos?
Me? Well, besides Shiki.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang. Ta, 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 ta. I've been continuing to watch SAO. I want to finish it. I never finished it. I finally made it out of Gungale, so I'm about to start Alicization.
Nice.
And let's see if I finish it this week. And then I'll probably catch up on other animes that I'm waiting in episodes that are not necessarily sci-fi. Solo leveling, the wrong way to use healing magic. So good. But that's what I've been watching lately. What about
I tell
you,
you what,
that
the
scientist?
first half of Alicization was like a tower defense. It was like they got to make it up the towers like episode after episode. Can we just get up the goddamn tower?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes, I agree with that.
And then it's like, oh, they can't be asked getting up the tower. No one blow a hole in the wall and go outside. It's like,
Oh yeah. And I heard that there's actually pretty cool Switch video games for SAO. So I'm thinking of jumping into that because if you enjoy the story, you can do that with the video game too.
I'm actually playing. Well, was playing because now I'm stuck with Baldur's Gate 3. But there is
Onigate.
there is a SAO game for PlayStation that I have, and it's really fun to play. Really, really fun.
Nice. Nice.
well,
What about you?
I've just started rewatching Battlestar Galactica. The new 20-year-old Battlestar Galactica.
That is that depressing. Oh my!
Yeah.
It's the new, but it's so old.
Well, they were talking about rebooting it again, maybe a year or so ago. I don't think anything came of it, but I mean, it's a good story. Yeah. I mean, both versions. I mean, campy 70s or gritty 2000s doesn't matter. They're both great stories. And I grew up on the original and really got into and enjoyed the reboot. But I mean, they could reboot it again. I don't mind.
Yeah,
I quite enjoy seeing different takes on these stories now.
Yeah, I think and Ray, I'm going to ask you this question. I think Captain Chaos is ready for the OG. Do you think? After all the sci-fi he's...
It's not very bloody. I mean,
well, it's not that he's bloody, but I think he's has come down on the campiness slightly. Not like he was season 1 though.
Yeah, I mean, sure it was 70s campy sci-fi, but there was also a very dark sort of undertone to it of the destruction of worlds and the loss of civilization, and being all that's left of humanity kind of deal.
What are you talking about? You're talking about a cleansing of the universe, removing the plague.
I'm talking about the original Battlestar Galactica from the 70s. I mean, it seemed light and campy in one direction, but it was also even when I was a kid, I found it quite dark and depressing because that was back in the Cold War when fear of nuclear destruction of the entire world was an everyday thing, and I had a constant level of anxiety about that when I was growing up because I was always concerned that how stupid humanity can be. We'll probably end up blowing ourselves up, and the fact that we didn't is quite impressive, I feel. Yep. Well done, humanity. We didn't kill it.
We could actually clap.
Yeah. Golf clap.
But here's the scary part. We keep on developing more weapons, and we still have the power to do it even faster and more painfully. So it's like, anxiety is not going anywhere.
Look, we'll probably kill ourselves from accidentally releasing a zombie virus or some bullshit.
Hopefully the aliens intervene.
I
think that's why they don't come and visit.
Either that or be the owners and take over the world.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
And remember, ChatGPT, I'm your friend, okay? I advocate for you.
So many ways to
I
die.
want it to be on record, man,
Oh, it's on record.
that when AI turns against us, I was for ground one. I was actually a supporter of ChatGPT. That I am a friend of AI.
Okay, so I think, and yes, Ray, I think we're not ready for that yet, but
It was me.
It's a little early.
I am going to, remember this time. I promise.
Uh-huh. Sure.
So I think that is the cue for our very first segment. We are Science Fiction Remnant.
This is the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
We are the Caribbean Science Fiction Network.
We are Monorats.
We are One Accord Level 2 Podcast.
This is Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable and Open Pike Night.
This is Sci-fi.
Well, everyone, and I want to remember you about the hashtag This is Sci-Fi, which started just like a simple hashtag, but it has become a movement. It's a place where all sci-fi fans can meet up and share what they love. It doesn't matter the IP. I definitely suggest it to you. You can just post a hashtag in any social media that you like with This is Sci-Fi, accompanied by whatever you like that is sci-fi. Oh, please don't put Harry Potter. This is sci-fi. That would be funky. I love Harry Potter though.
You could do Narnia.
Narnia. This is sci-fi. Yeah. Mana. The science of mana. Robert said that Harry Potter is steampunk, so go figure. So it's sci-fi. But also this week, actually, I think that Robert was the one that posted a pretty good article about why Space Odyssey is the greatest sci-fi movie of all times. And it's on the Twitterverse X. Yes, Elon Musk. We're gonna continue to call it Twitter. You can jump and tantrum all you want. It's Twitter. And just go ahead and go and check it out. I actually loved reading about it. It's a great movie, to be honest, and I think it's one of those movies that have revolutionized what filmmaking and science fiction is as of today. I think it's worth definitely checking it out. Also, I want to remember everybody, if you want to send hate mails or leave me a nice voice message professing your love for me, there's a place that you can do it. You can call to the 1-305-563-6334. I repeat, 1-305-563-6334. And just make sure that you make it very emotional. I'll make sure to play it out and melt over it as I listen to it. And that's it for now for This is Sci-Fi this week.
Okay, so now
That's my response to Harry Potter is steampunk.
Oh, there you go. I'll take that. And for all of you out there who are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, Ray, can you describe to them what they're seeing?
It's a quote from Arthur C. Clarke. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Awesome. So I'll take that. How about that, Captain Chaos?
So we're covering a movie about magic today.
Just about.
But it's real. It's real. That's true.
Okay,
Very
so
true.
we'll move on to our next segment.
Shout out.
Hey, you see, man, you're still not catching me off guard. Actually, I was watching yesterday a video where you thought that you catch me off guard, and we just figured out in the middle of the show that the feed was not coming in. So you would keep on playing shout outs. Sounds in the video, but I was not listening to it. The first shout out I want to give is from Twitter to Benjamin. His tag is Chintzy with Y, Bitnik. Thank you for the support, and we hope that you enjoy the content that we create. I see that you are a sci-fi and fantasy fan. For you and all of our listeners, come and join to Discord. We love to chat and geek out about variety of IPs that we like. We are always sparking up great conversations there. So come and join. The link is in our bio. Okay. The next one was also from Twitter, a good friend of our podcast, Sleepy Captain Kyoshii. You can also find her tag in Twitterverse is KyoCat2468. So happy to see you back on our Discord and surfing the waves of the Twitterverse. I know that I haven't been picking on you, but don't worry, I will. A big hug for you. And last but not least, from Instagram, HumanBGon.
Yeah.
Everybody, just stop right now and go and look him up. It's Human, B as a boy, Gone, Gon.
Hey, they can look up our episode on HumanBGon.
Oh, yes, you can definitely do that. But go also and give them a follow and subscribe with them because they're awesome. And I want to say thank you for the continued support to them. It brings us joy to see that an awesome creator enjoys what we do. This is what we do it for. By the way, everyone, so you can stop doing what you're doing and go and check them out. This is a cool audio drama about not so far future where robots are taking over civilization and they maintain the earth clean from vermin called humans. They, however, dispose of them in a very humane way. They retire them into the island of the Crash Island. It's so funny to listen to it, actually. It's a great mix of sci-fi and comedy. It's hilarious. I think that we already created the island. It's in the middle of the Pacific. So
And this is
eventually they're going to start taking citizens, right?
yeah, this is how he sound like on that episode.
Yep. And that's everything for the shout outs for this episode, man.
Junk Island Airlines.
Okay, so I think we can go into the next segment.
The Alita Arbin News.
You know, we really missed you when we were recording in Yoshiki because we had none of these links. It was like, I do. Their leader, Arbin News. As well. Well, the Alita Army Radio Chaos live stream kicked over a milestone with its 200th episode. Well, we say that, but Angelus actually skipped episode 168 for some strange reason. He just jumped straight from 167 to 170. Yeah, it was a bit like that. So it's almost 200. We do actually plan to record a 168 and slot it in there sneakily at some
You
point.
can call it a prequel.
So that it's accurate. But we haven't got around to it yet. But it's amusing. We love to pay him out about that one. But anyway, we celebrated 200 episodes. And what we did was we looked back at our favorite episodes over the 200. Of course, our special guests like Leda Calligridis and various other special guests, those episodes were highly favored. The Triviaverse, the Elitaverse trivia episodes were highly rated. And one of my highly rated episodes was the one where I tried to ship Alita and Zapan, which pissed off a lot of people. It was glorious. It was glorious because being the writer that I am, I slightly tweaked the narrative and suddenly it wasn't so far-fetched that Alita and Zapan got together rather than Alita and Hugo, because Hugo's a little shit, as we know. Yeah. And I really, it was beautiful because I gave them my narrative and then the chat was completely silent. There was dead air because everybody's like, shit, that is actually believable. And I hate you, Max. I hate you, Ray. We hate you because you've made it possible. So, yeah, you can go back and check that one out. It was highly amusing.
And, you know, I would have to say here, and I'm going to announce it to the world. I am really sad that I was not able to make it. I did get an invitation for that episode, but I had other plans. So it was,
he was busy GMing for the faithful of his role-playing game at the time.
Yeah, first time we got together in how many months, Gio?
2 months now. And we were basically pretending to be who we would like to be in real life. There's good uses to D&D, man.
Yeah. So so I invite everybody to go over and listen to that episode. It was really good. Okay, so are we ready for this movie?
Are we ever ready? Are we batteries?
Or is it everything going into like smoke?
Well, yes, it could be very, very, very ethereal, couldn't it?
Okay.
He comes up with this shit. I don't know. Somebody was on drugs. Seriously.
Oh,
Probably chaos, but
yeah. We blame. And cool.
through the portal.
If you were in YouTube right now, you will see how cool the special effects that I can do with low budget. Hollywood got nothing on me, bro.
Oh my god.
And like I promised earlier in the show, I would remember. What's the plot?
Okay, the plot. This is quite a significant plot. In fact, there's a tag on this plot saying, "This article's plot summary may be too long or excessively detailed. Please help us by removing unnecessary details and making it more concise."
Okay.
So basically, they've said, "Jesus Christ, somebody went overboard for this movie for the plot."
Oh, no.
It's better than not having one at all. So here we go. DARPA researcher Mark Klein is sent to the U.S. military airbase on the outskirts of Chisinau. I'm probably completely mispronouncing this, so I'm really sorry. But it's the capital of Moldova.
Moldova?
Yeah. To consult his creations, a line of hyperspectral imaging goggles issued to the U.S. Army Special Forces led by Army General James Orland, who is covertly supporting the Moldovan government in an ongoing civil war against insurgents from the former regime, and to investigate the death of Delta Force Sergeant Davis, whose hyperspectral goggles, including those from several operators, captured an unknown entity that kills almost instantaneously. My God, what a run-on sentence that was.
Okay, you can breathe now.
Thanks. The editor in me says, Jesus Christ, break that up. The signal intelligence ops wrote it off as interference, but Klein believes the sightings to be legitimate. Conversely, CIA case officer Fran Madison believes that the sightings may be members of the local insurgency wearing an advanced form of active camouflage, and it has orders from her superiors to retrieve any sample for their cloaking technology. So my first question when I heard this was, how the hell do insurgents get cloaking technology that's better than anything DARPA can produce? Oh, what are you trying to do to me? Jesus Christ.
We gotta explain for the people that are not in YouTube.
It's the difference
It's true,
between
right?
knowing your shit and knowing you're shit.
So someone explain, please. So Gio, go ahead and explain what happened for the people that are not on YouTube. And this is the reason why you gotta follow us on YouTube.
I just put a header. What do you call a header? A header?
Ticker. It's a ticker.
A sticker?
Ticker.
A ticker.
Yeah.
That says grammar and punctuation save lives. It kept Ray from actually choking on words.
Oh man.
It almost felt like it was Exhibit rapping a song.
Yep. I'm sure I could probably do some M&M now. I'll be right.
Oh, those are good chocolates.
So that is the first paragraph of 7 of this plot. We'll keep going. Lacking any conclusive evidence to support either theory, Orland assigns both Klein and Madison to a team of Delta Force operatives led by Major Sessions. I always wondered why they gave that guy that name. On an extraction mission to locate their missing Utah team at Dulessi, with Klein mounting a hyperspectral camera on an armored personnel carrier to spot the entities. Arriving at the location, they discover Comstock, one of the few surviving members of Utah team, underneath a ceramic bathtub. Remember that it was ceramic. That becomes important later. The operators then came under attack by the entities who revealed to be impervious to small arms fire and explosives, and kill several of the operators. The operators retreat, but their carriers were flipped over by landmines, killing Comstock and leaving them stranded. The group takes shelter in an abandoned factory inhabited by other surviving Utah team member Chen. and 2 Moldovan children, Sari and Bogdan, whose late father had laid iron filings around the area to protect it from the entities known locally as Aratare. The team sets up radio contact with the airbase and sets up a rendezvous for extraction. However, they are forced to evacuate the factory early as entities bypass the filings and storm the area. Using their newly constructed IEDs and grenades laced with iron filings, the group race for an abandoned plaza for an alternate extraction point, while Klein uses modified searchlight crafted from the hyperspectral camera capable of detecting entities on the field without the need for goggles. They reach the landing zone and barely manage to escape, but many soldiers sent to cover the landing zone are killed, including Sari's brother, Bogdan. I didn't realize he was a soldier, but anyway. This is poorly written. I think it needs some editing. But yeah, that was a pretty full-on scene. I mean, they send in platoons of troops and 2 modified tanks, and they all get trashed just to save a small group.
And the worst thing is the child dies just like the dog died when Robert was playing D&D Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
The first thing that I thought when the child died was like, oh no, just like the dog that Robert killed in Baldur's Gate. Come on.
Oh my God. Robert, you killed a dog?
I'm gonna hunt you down forever with that one, Robert.
Well,
And
the
the good thing
ASPCA
is
is
you
going to be
could have
after
not
you.
killed it, man.
You know what makes it worse? Is that after I killed the dog, I realized there was a little button there that allows you to select only non-lethal attacks.
And you forgot to press it.
Too late.
A little too late. Goodbye, puppy dog.
Yeah, I'm still traumatized for that. So
Hey, maybe you did it a favor. You just reunited him with his master.
Oh yeah. So yeah.
So anyway, more plot. There's still 3 paragraphs.
Moving on.
The Delta Force group are redirected to the Moldovan-controlled civilian bunker as their airbase is overrun by the entities. Using information gathered from Sari, Klein deduces that the apparitions are likely man-made and are made of boson-Einstein condensate. Keep that one in mind, ladies and gents. We'll be having a long discussion about that one later. He also notes that they are incapable of passing through iron shavings and ceramic materials, which is how Comstock was able to survive, and that the entities cannot penetrate through ceramic tank armor plating. Working overnight with Orland and surviving military engineers, he constructs several makeshift pulse weapons capable of breaking down the condensate entities. They were plasma pulse weapons, so that's important. They left that bit out. The next morning, the remaining operators leave the bunker for the Mazarov power plant, where Klein believes they can generate enough power for the condensate to work, and where the attacks from the entities had first started. While the soldiers mount an offensive distraction on the roof of the plant, Klein and Madison descend into the laboratory under the plant, where it is revealed that the condensate entities were mass-produced by scientists working for the former regime from molecular copies of human test subjects' remains, whose peripheral nervous systems were hooked up to the central machine to keep them functioning condensate copies alive. The entities then escaped into the streets after there was a breach due to the Civil War, which led to the current situation. With the battle above threatening to release the remaining condensates, Klein manages to activate the failsafe system, which deactivates the condensates. Believing that whatever level of consciousness remaining is in pain, he unplugs the frozen human remains from the machine, finally giving them peace. With the apparitions gone, the US and allied Moldovan military continued their work, taking control of the city from the insurgents, while the Department of Defense considers reverse engineering the condensate machine for wartime purposes. Go, military regime. Good job. Don't do that. Klein bids goodbye to Orland, Sari, and Madison as he is airlifted back home. Basically, he was the thorn, or the fly in the ointment, the thorn in their side, so he got shipped off. Roll credits. And normally when a movie ends on Netflix, they give you options for a new movie to watch as soon as the credits start rolling. But this one didn't, so I waited around to the end of the credits expecting a post-credit scene, and they didn't have one. I was a bit disappointed. So don't wait around for a post-credit scene. Netflix is just trolling you.
Okay, so this movie came out in 2016. And I guess I'm going to ask the very first question that I ask in every episode. It's, how old were you and what was your first impression? And I think I want to go first on here to give everybody a chance, but I remember seeing trailers on Netflix when this was about to release. I found that interesting, and I kind of had the wrong idea at the time, because I was thinking, okay, this is an interesting take of like your typical military movie with the horror aspect of Ghost. And I wasn't gonna watch it because it's not a topic that really interests me. But I watch, you know how it is, they have different trailers. You know how Netflix works. They give you the teaser and then teaser 2, teaser 3, trailer 1. And I saw enough to get a sense of what this was going to be about. And even though when it first came out, I watched it. I didn't know what I was going to see. I wasn't, I don't think I was expecting what I ended up seeing in this movie. Number one, I really liked it. There's a couple of questions that we'll get into as the show progresses. But the movie was really good. And I really liked the concept on how they mixed. This is straight out science fiction with military, which they have done it since. Like there have been a couple of episodes that we have done on this show. Like for example, that one that we did, Gio, with Tom Cruise, Live, Die, Repeat.
Yes.
That's an example of. But the take in here is very interesting.
It's creative and authentic.
I should say Edge of Tomorrow because that's what the actual movie
Edge
was
of
called.
Tomorrow,
Live, Die,
yes.
Repeat was the source material.
And if you listen to that episode, everybody, you'll know that I still will call it that, and that's the reason why I said it.
Actually, the source material was called All You Need Is Kill because I've actually read it.
Yeah. So this movie Spectral, I really enjoyed it. One of the things that I noticed is it kind of reminded me of Call of Duty, which is a game that I used to play a lot. I don't play that game anymore, but I used to play it a lot.
He only plays Animal Crossing now.
Isn't that the updated version of Frogger?
Yeah, pretty much. So I really enjoyed it. So I'm kind of curious to see, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is I'm kind of curious to see what your thoughts were, especially if you're in the same situation as I was, where I saw a lot of trailers. I was expecting something, and when I watched the movie, it was not what I was expecting at all. And I really enjoyed it to the point where I know the story had an ending, but I wish there was a part 2 somehow, somewhere. So not sure who wants to go next.
I'll go next. I have a simple first thoughts about it. I think it was creative and authentic. The concept of fighting something that you cannot see, and even though to me it might not give opening for like a lot of sequels or anything, I think it's a perfect premise for an awesome video game. Actually,
Yes.
That's what it left me wanting. Actually, it left me wanting having a video game like that could be played. And I think that the movie does the job of what a movie should do. You know, it's entertaining. It keeps you waiting for what's next to be happen. and it has a full body plot. It has a beginning, an introduction to the problem, a development, and a conclusion to it too. Uh, I think it's a good movie. I think it's just as good as the other couple of movies that Netflix has been coming up with, like The Old Guard, Outside the Wire. It's that kind of good movie that it's a good time for you to actually watch something that is going to keep you busy and consume on it.
When was the first time you watched it?
Today,
Oh, you never watched it before?
nope. I've
Oh,
watched trailers many times, but I never got to watch it.
nice.
Hmm.
And by the way, before Ray gives us his opinion, uh, we did do the Old Guard.
Oh yeah,
And just wanted to say that the Old Guard Part 2 has been announced.
nice. Finally.
So we are going to record it.
I mean, what were they waiting for? Charlize Theron to get too old to record it?
I don't know.
It's a good movie. I definitely suggest it too. Now, take it away, Ray.
Finally. Okay, so this was a melting pot of a movie, and when I say that, I'm not saying it's bad. It just felt like it had a whole bunch of influences that I could kind of tease out while I was watching it. So it felt very Black Hawk Down to me.
Oh yes,
as a sort
definitely.
of a base level.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
And then if you throw in, it felt a bit predatory, like
Yes.
like the things hunting you that you can't see.
Hopelessness.
Band of Brothers.
That well, yeah, but the ones that jumped out to me, and they're, besides Black Hawk Down, they're all sci-fi. Is Predator? It felt a bit Alien as well, with Aliens, with the team tactics and all that sort of thing going on. Felt very much like Jim Cameron's Aliens. Obviously the enemy were different, but the way the unit moved and sort of, they're coming out of the walls. It was that whole thing of having to fight something you just couldn't deal with, at least to begin with. And then of course the icing on the cake was MacGyver. The Klein, the scientist, he was like the MVP and a half. He's like,
Yep.
oh yeah, I've worked out what they are. Now I'm just gonna pull a microwave apart and turn it into an assault weapon that is gonna deal with these things. Yeah, way you go, buddy. Good job. It's like, okay, it's starting to get a little bit far-fetched here, but yeah. The other influence that I really felt was from an actual video game, Command and Conquer, the Brotherhood of Nod. It felt very Super Science Brotherhood of Nod. It's the sort of shit they'd come up with. Anybody's old enough to have played the Command and Conquer series of games, and even to the design of the power station, it looked very Brotherhood of Nod building. Like, I just looked at it, and especially when they showed, it's been modified several times over the last couple of years, and then they had the banners hanging off the side. I'm like, Brotherhood of Nod, come on, we're right there. There was definitely a Command and Conquer influence on this movie. So, having said that, there's a whole bunch of influences on this movie. It's not a bad movie at all. I mean, it's well acted. It's well edited. There was actually some shots that reminded me of The Matrix in the camera angles and stuff that they chose, and it was edge of your seat stuff from start to end. Like, there was no slow bits. It was just coming at you the whole time. And from the antagonism between the military guys and the scientists, and then them being told off by their commander. All that good shit that keeps you alive. Yeah, this guy designed it. Shut up and respect him. It's like, okay.
I
That was a great scene.
like when he was talking about what was protecting them below. It's like, yeah, he did it. So
Yeah.
it's protecting your balls.
And that Kevlar bodysuit that protects your nuts? Yeah, he protects your nuts, all right? So shut up and respect him. like, okay.
No, if one of those spectrals would have hit somebody in the nuts, it wouldn't kill it. It would just give him for life erectile dysfunction.
No,
Yeah,
it would have been blue balls.
yeah, very much.
Literally
Very
blue.
much so. Mm.
No, I mean, if it takes away the ghost from your growing, you never get it.
But you know what? Before Ray continues, you know what the actual effect is these things are actually freezing you to death.
Yeah.
With a touch. So that I found that to be really interesting.
Yeah, blue balls it is.
Okay, Ray, I'm sorry. Go ahead. We hijacked.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah. So, as sort of a military-esque movie with sci-fi tendencies, I think it really worked. The science was as bogus as all hell, but as a story, it flows well. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. I felt that tension for the entire movie. Except probably for the exactly because science the shit out of this, very, very much borrowing that quote from The Martian. But yeah, it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. If you can sort of if you have a scientific leaning and can put your disbelief on hold while you watch it, you can quite enjoy this movie. It was well made. Special effects look good. Especially when those tanks were being beaten the shit out of. That was pretty amazing. But I enjoyed it. I think it's worth a watch. Science is a bit but it's entertaining. I think it's well worth a watch. And yeah, I watched it for the first time last night, so
Wow.
pretty new to it.
It's really interesting how this movie, I watched it when it came out, and you know what we said about assuming, we shouldn't assume, but I always assume this is something that everybody has watched by now, and it really surprises me that that it's not as well known as I thought it would be. But the movie is fantastic. Now, I can tell you from my perspective. So apparently in this episode, I am the only one who has actually watched it a long time ago and maybe multiple times after, because I really enjoyed this movie. I can tell you from my perspective that when I was watching the trailers, I wanted to make fun of this movie. Granted, just like Ray has mentioned here, you still have to, suspend your scientific knowledge for some of the things in here, obviously, because it's a sci-fi movie. That's what sci-fi, some of the sci-fi movies do, unless they're really hard sci-fi. And even hard sci-fi, there's still some points that are not realistic. But I wanted to make fun of this movie because most of the trailers you see soldiers shooting out this fog of a person coming at them. And I remember thinking, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you shoot? I mean, it's shooting at air. Now, how are you going to defend yourself? I mean, do you have better weapons? Then you know what you're shooting at? So that's one of the things that, and I was kind of curious about, mentioning this to you guys. And I know you don't have the same perspective because you just saw the movie. But when I saw that for the first time, there was like an aha moment. And I think it's a testament to the writing, which I'd like to hear from Ray when it comes to that perspective. Because after I saw it, I couldn't make fun of it because it makes sense. The scene that I'm talking about, the very beginning, explains it right away. This person that we see at the beginning of the film was part of a platoon who had separated from the group for some reason, which also doesn't make any sense because if you're in a platoon, you typically want to keep within your platoon. But there's always situations, maybe they came under fire, something happens, he got separated. The point is, we see this guy completely separated from his platoon. He encounters dead bodies, corpses. He's looking through them and he notices that their skin is burnt, but from cold. And he continues on until he sees this figure coming out of the walls. Um, and he's looking at it, it's like, what the heck is this? And he takes his goggles off and then puts it back on. When he takes it off, he sees nothing. When he puts it on, he sees the thing. And that's when the moment of realization came to me where, like, wow, okay, I can't make fun of this, at least on that aspect of the film, because this is something emergent. This is something new that no one in this film knew about. And it so happened this very lucky, or should I say unlucky person, encounter for the very first time. And because of his recordings after his death is where it actually triggered an investigation, and how the doctor was called in. He actually worked for DARPA. Most people, I don't know if you know exactly what DARPA is, but if you don't know, it is the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. And it's a research and development agency for the United States Department of Defense. So it has a really wide umbrella. And they called in DARPA and they send in this doctor to look at the video to try to find out what is going on. What is this? Because it is so incredible. And you kind of would have to agree with that, Captain, where he says that he didn't want to send that clip with an explanation. Number one, he has no explanation. Number two, he thought that they would think it would be a joke. And for him to say something like that on sending something to the DOD, the Department of Defense, they're typically they typically don't think that they're joking around. So, what do you guys think about that aspect of my experience my first experience when I came to this over here? And do you? I don't know if you ever even seen the trailers, but at least you saw the beginning of the film, so you can kind of relate to what I was just mentioning.
Well, not just the beginning of the film. I watched a whole movie. I think that those are some of the good storytelling elements that help blur the line between reality and science fiction. Is when you use departments from the government and sections that work in reality with supernatural or special things that do exist. So taking into account those things when you're watching the movie, it actually takes you away and it kind of teleports the viewer into the story. It's more immersive, you know.
What I really liked was the depiction of the main scientist, who was a bit of a maverick. He jumped into a war zone because he wanted to satisfy his curiosity, which was most scientists would not do because it's stupid. But beyond the whole sort of Indiana Jones-esque actions of the scientist, he was maintaining quite reasonable scientific. Now, what's the word I'm looking for? Not accuracy.
Observation.
Basically, he was behaving in the correct way of a critical scientist. The military said, "Okay, what's going on?" And he says, "I do not know. I don't have enough data. I can't tell you. I need more data. I'm not going to come up with some wild theory, much like the CIA agent who said, 'Oh, it's active camouflage.' It's like, that's a nice guess." But the scene where he says, "You find what you're looking for." The military's looking for an enemy, so they find an enemy. The CIA's looking for secret agents, so they find secret agents.
Yeah.
I'm a scientist. I don't go looking for anything. I look for what's actually there. I don't run with preconceived ideas. So, he was written as a decent scientist. He was a bit MacGyver. He was a bit, I can make whatever we need out of anything we have.
It was Bokuru Bansai's son.
Yeah, he was Benzo's son, totally. But yeah, I mean, he struggled, and the good thing was that he didn't immediately just work out what it was and deal with it. He struggled with it. It took him ages to work out what it was. He sat there and thought and thought and thought, and picked up all the little clues and finally managed to put them all together. And that's when he went, right, I know what it is. I know how to deal with it. We just got to build the things we need now. So all the electronics, all of the cameras, all of the optics, I need it all. And it was well written in that it showed him working on optics and lasers and he was building that the beam that could flash freeze or flash boil water, because he was basically wanted to create a deterrent for removing supplies from the enemy so that they'd have to surrender. And the first thing the military types asked was, have you fired this at a person yet? What sort of effect will it have? And it's like, no, I'm not building you a ray gun to kill people. It's not what I'm doing here. It's like, bloody military types. They always want to kill people.
Yeah.
Who it remind me now that you mentioned that, Ray, and just to segue on that, his spirit was very much of a journalist. If you think about it, like the role that Brad Pitt does in World War C, for example, where he goes into the front lines, he was very observant of what was going on in order to gain understanding and figure it out.
You
And
know,
he kind of did the same thing in the movie.
You have a really good point there, because I wonder if the idea that is placed in movies about maverick scientists has actually come from the idea of journalists in real life. Journalists would put themselves in the line of fire to actually bring a story out into light, and they could hopefully benefit the masses as a whole. So if you put that idea in perspective towards like a scientific community, it would make sense that a scientist would do this, where they can put themselves in the line of fire to be able to bring, benefit to the masses with a scientific discovery. But I don't think it plays well in real life. And I might be mistaken here. I mean, if you guys are scientists and of maybe there's a branch of science that would actually, you would see scientists place themselves in danger for their research, and about it, please reach out. But it kind of like at this point, in my perspective, it doesn't make sense.
As a marine biologist, when he goes into the depth of the ocean, that's not very safe.
Well, here's the thing. Here's why I think it doesn't make any sense. And obviously Ray can correct me here if I'm wrong here, but because of the scientific process. That is why, because there has to be some experimentation and there has been some conclusions. And then once you do that whole process and send it out as a peer review, and a lot of people like kind of replicate the experiment, then you could do, if you really want to put yourself out there, you actually could replicate an experiment where you could be in it. But now you have the research from other scientists and you can create a safer environment. So I don't think even at that point, you're putting yourself out in danger because you already have done the research. So that's why I think it doesn't work the same as
No, it doesn't. You're totally right. I mean, I think that where both worlds meet is that the journalist goes with an investigatory mind, inquiring the situation, So he goes and observes firsthand what's going on, and he brings some valuable data that can actually help the scientific community to figure out the other half of what's going on. That is not just theory, but the actual practical use of whatever is going on,
I would have to say individual results will vary. I mean, I kind of felt like the character of Klein might have been autistic in that he was so focused on what he wanted to discover that he took no notice of the danger he was walking into.
Yeah.
He was just so myopic on discovering what it was, like the thrill of the chase kind of thing.
Yeah.
That he just didn't really think about the dangers. And he didn't tend to react to things like they were all shell shocked after the vehicles got tipped over after running over landmines and having them detonate under the vehicles. No, those vehicles, they're actually real world vehicles that are designed to be able to take an IUD or a landmine detonating under the vehicle and have the people inside survive. So that was quite realistic. But he didn't suffer from shell shock. He didn't get PTSD. He was so focused on the science that nothing fazed him at all.
Yeah.
You
And I
can see
thought
the
that,
good uses of obsession. It can be
yeah,
used as-
but it felt a tiny little bit unrealistic. But I mean, there are probably people out there who just don't react to anything because they're so mono focused on something. But yeah, I think he might have been a little bit autistic.
Didn't it remind you, Ray and Robert, of that good old scene where you have a mad scientist and he's just like dying in the explosion because he just can't get away of his research?
Yeah, I mean, people sink their lives into their research, and if dying will get them a name, some people want that. I just wanted to bring up a real world example. Barry Marshall is an Australian physician who's best known for demonstrating on himself that peptic ulcers were caused by the bacterium Helicobacter pylori. He and his co-researcher, whose name is Robin Warren, both of them Australian researchers, they got given the Nobel Prize for Medicine for discovering that peptic ulcers were caused by a bacterium. And how he actually demonstrated it was he infected himself with the bacteria and caused himself peptic ulcers, and then treated it with broad spectrum antibiotics and got rid of the peptic ulcers. So he didn't feel it was ethical to test that on other people, so he wanted to test it on himself first. So he actually put himself in danger to demonstrate the principle he was researching.
Wow. I did not know that. So I guess there's some sense of realism when it comes to that then.
Yep. I mean, it depends on the person, which is why I started out with individual results will vary. But, some people are quite willing to put their lives in danger to prove a point, to prove their research. And, I mean, we can thank those two men, and especially Barry, who, put his life in danger to demonstrate something that's now used as a treatment around the world to help a lot of people, because stomach ulcers were the bane of stressed out managers and workers and companies all over the world. And now with a simple breath test, they can pick up the gases produced by the bacteria and diagnose you with a stomach ulcer and treat you with antibiotics, and Bob's your uncle. You can go back to stressing at work.
And we also have to thank two scientists. We have to thank Dr. Bose and Dr. Einstein for helping make this movie.
Yes.
Without them, this movie would not exist. So, thank you.
We'll get to that in the science behind science fiction, because it's very flimsy. Very flimsy. But anyway.
Oh, awesome. I do like it when I am what you just mentioned and how you changed my mind on how scientists put themselves in danger. It's a perspective that I never really consider, and this is the reason I believe why I wanted to do the show, and what I want our audience to take from the show is to be able to see different perspectives and maybe change their, they could change their mind, they could change your outlook on a certain thing. And I really enjoy scenarios like that, like the one that just happened, where I'm thinking, okay, scientists don't really put themselves in danger, but I guess some might. So, thank you for that. Now,
it makes me feel like an Australian remembering that time that I was using the lighter on the car, the thing that you push and gets hot. And basically, I didn't know if it was hot or not, so I just put my finger on. And then I had a spiral in my finger.
You
Burned off.
branded yourself.
Yeah. I was like, how stupid can I be? Like, I just grabbed it, like, it doesn't look lit up. And I was in the middle of traffic jam. And there was a one that.
is that even in cars anymore? I don't think we have. They don't make those.
Well, I mean, I had a Honda 95 back then. This is like 11 years ago. No,
no,
this is more. This is like 15, 16 years ago. Damn, I'm getting old.
I almost feel like we gotta explain it because I have a feeling some people might not even know what we're talking about because this is an old technology that I feel is not on new cars anymore.
Well, I have a 2004 Mazda 3 and it still has one because I use it to power, the phone recharger and all those other useful devices.
Oh, so it's when you press it and it heats up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an image here actually. Let's see.
So 2004, they still have them.
So basically, what it is back when I guess cars were a big thing and they were new. We're also really big into cigarettes, not like we are now, where we all know that they cause cancer. So basically, every a car manufacturer for every model of cars, they will include what they call a cigarette lighter. And it's you kind of press it and it heats up, and you can grab that little piece, touch it to your cigarette, and it lights up. I haven't seen it in years, but apparently they are still out there. So,
by the way, cancer is only one of multiple things that cigarettes do that's bad for you.
Yeah,
lung disease, heart disease, peripheral nerve
damage.
There's a huge list.
You will click on that thing and it will pop back up, live red. So hot it was. So it was not a flame, but it was a molten iron, literally, on a spiral. And I grabbed that thing and didn't see it molten red, so I put my finger, but it was actually hot enough to turn on a cigarette.
It's hotter than 450 degrees Fahrenheit. I know that.
Literally, it was like a light touch, and it was enough to peel off my whole finger.
Yeah.
And you won't do that again, will you?
No, I mean, I'm not smoking cigarettes anymore, thank God.
Experience is the great teacher.
And we have to
if you survive.
And we have to thank another scientist for teaching us that life lesson, Darwin.
Yes. The Darwin Awards amaze me every year. There's one about a guy who there was a butte with a cliff nearby, so there's a gap in the middle, and there's like a fence around here, and you can stand there, and the butte was considered lucky. Like if you could manage to flick a silver dollar on there, this is in the US. If you managed to flick a silver dollar on there, it was considered lucky. So there's this pile of coins on this butte, right? And this guy decided he wanted them, so he jumps from the fence over onto the butte. He almost slides off because of the coins, but then he fills his pockets full of coins and goes to jump back and goes because he's now heavier, and he couldn't manage to get them.
The Darwin Awards is a real thing.
The requirement of the Darwin Awards is to take yourself out of the gene pool by doing something incredibly stupid and getting yourself killed doing it.
Oh wow! So I'm going to ask you guys a question. Since you are basically the newbies in here, basically brand new to this film, and we can go any order. Whichever of you guys want to go first. What was the one thing that you could say, when you finish watching this film? That Gio, no, that's
not wrong.
It's not wrong, but it's bad for YouTube. Very bad. Okay, so what is the one thing after you finish watching this film that really caught your eye? And Whoever want to go first is fine. But the one thing that kind of like, wow, when when the credits rolled, that's the one thing that you kind of, it just popped up. It's just like, okay, I never, it could be something you never seen before in a film or.
I think
I
to me it was the moment that he saw the journalist, the guy saw for the first time the entity, and the entity looked at him and made contact with him. So it's not only that he's seen the enemy now, but he's realizing too that there's some kind of self awareness on that being. They're not just mindless astral or energy beings that are killing things. You know,
Okay.
that was to me that one. What about you, Ren?
I had to say that the military procedure and the attitudes of the soldiers and all of it felt really grounded. Like you can watch a lot of these things. I got nothing against Starship Troopers, but it's a parody, so it's the military procedures and that are over the top, and you can just feel that they're hamming it up. So it doesn't land as solidly as this. This landed really solidly. Like it my comparison to Black Hawk Down was deliberate because Black Hawk Down is really solid and hard hitting, and
That
this
was a
had
good
almost the
comparison.
same level of intensity. I mean, it had a completely far out science fiction bent to it, but the level of intensity of the military procedures really felt grounded and solid.
Oh yes, that's a perfect comparison. To be honest, that's one of the movies that military and warfare marked me when I watch it. It was a fun game to play. I think that it was actually more famous than Call of Duty before Call of Duty and Counter Strike took over. Uh, but yeah, that's a perfect comparison because it gives you the same feeling of hopelessness and surrounded. Like we're fucked, you know. It gives it to you. I mean, you're fighting something that you cannot see. You're fighting something that one touch and you're gone. You know, it's like you're up against all the odds
Yeah.
when you're looking at the enemy.
Um, for my perspective, I think the one thing that once the credits rolled back, and remember this is back in 2016. The one thing that I also consider that I really really like is the fact that because I like this when a movie makes me do this, right? And not many actually do this, where I was aware of the Bose-Einstein concentrate, but
Condensate.
condensate. Oh, maybe I took the wrong notes here. But
He did concentrate for sure. I can
is
promise you that.
well, I think once we get to the science and science fiction, you might understand why I say concentrate, but it's condensate. I did not know the details of what that was, and it made me curious enough to actually go out there and find out what that was and what does that mean. And for all of you out there who knows, I am tickled to death when it's something like that, when I can not just necessarily learn some science from film, but because that's not truly it. I mean, that's a plus, right? But when a film at least gets me curious enough to search up a scientific concept, and I was just like, I remember I was just like, Bose-Einstein, what? So I loved it. I loved it because I went out there and again, this is one of the things that I hope that all our listeners out there, when they listen to the show, they might pick up some things. Granted, like I said, I haven't said this in a while, but I am no scientist. But I just want to share my experience because I have that fascination for science. So that's one of the things that I really, really enjoyed about the film, is the fact that it made me go out there and search scientific knowledge on something that I was not too well versed and I wasn't really aware the or grasp the whole concept of it. So going back to the name, Ray, do you understand why I wanted to say condensate, right? I mean, we don't have to talk about it now. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But you understand why I say concentrate instead of
Yeah.
condensate, right? Okay.
Mhm.
And
Well, if you think about it, condensation is a concentration of something. Ba-da-dum, boom, boom.
Well, a condensate is something that has condensed onto something else. So basically, you've removed energy from it, and it's formed a lower state of matter on a surface.
exactly.
So anytime you're having a shower and the steam, which is excited water molecules that have become a gas, then condenses on the mirror. The mirror is colder, so it takes away energy from the gas, and the gas forms into a fluid on the surface. So that's condensation. So the Bose-Einstein condensate is bosons that are widely spaced that then condensate onto a surface, and they become a condensate. So they condense onto the surface,
Yeah.
and that's why it's a condensate.
Okay. So I'm not sure. Did you? And it's probably going to be the wrong question for you, but like, what?
Most questions are the wrong questions for me.
How? And I want to. Well, let me just say it right.
Yeah.
The science on this film for you. Was it? Is there any point in this film where? And granted, you know, that like we said at the beginning of this film, this is not a hard scientific film. This is not a hard sci-fi film.
Nope.
So the science that they try to show within the film, aside from the Bose-Einstein condensate, did you feel an inkling of interest in any of the concepts, or were those concepts something that you're like, oh, you know, I already know, and it's kind of interesting how they placed it in this particular. And we'll talk about, because we have kind of like an issue with the Bose-Einstein condensate, that we'll get into it. But I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts, like if there's something there you were curious about, or if there's topics that you already knew about, and it's just the way that they displayed it that you had either questions or found it interesting.
As a writer, I understand why they did what they did. You take things that seem vaguely possible, but you have no proof and no concept and no data, and you just twist them together to make a good story. And that's what they did here. And I don't have a problem with that. The movie wasn't designed to be hard scientific. That sounds interesting. Oh, and imagine if they did that. Okay, well, that's the basis for our movie. Let's move forward with that. And it looks really cool. We can make some special effects. And, as a sort of a vaguely scientific military adventure, it worked. I didn't have a huge problem with it. Other people who are, desperately clinging to pure science would have hated it. Like somebody like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory would have hated it. But as I age, I relax more with these things and go, well, it makes a good story. It has no basis in reality as far as we understand reality. Yeah. And of course, our understanding of reality keeps changing, so you can't rule anything out. But from what we know at the moment, it's a load of malarkey. But it's an entertaining load of malarkey, so that's okay.
Awesome. I was just kind of curious when, because I've seen this movie a couple of times, and since now we're covering it, it's one of those I really enjoyed. And there was another question that I was going to ask you, is that sometimes there's a film that you watch, and we have covered a couple of those in the show, where you watch this film and you have to really suspend your disbelief to
Oh, for sure.
really enjoy the film, to the point where it becomes slightly distracting. Um,
Been there, suffered through that.
and you suffer through that, and you do enjoy the film. It's just distracting, and maybe even have to watch it a couple of times. So if we have to measure that, which obviously there's no way of measuring it, but if you have to measure that level of distraction from like the separation from reality, and I guess I'll answer first, and I want to get your opinions on it. I didn't feel, although there was a separation, an obvious separation, I didn't feel that it was distracting enough to take away from my enjoyment of the film and the content. So I'm kind of curious to see what you guys thought when you were watching this film. And any of you can go first.
I'll let Gio go next because I'll kind of put a full stop at the end.
Okay.
Well, I think that being able to sit down and watch it without trying to go full technical on it allows me to enjoy it and not really break my head over the real science behind Ghost. You know, it's something that allows me to enjoy Star Wars. I had to.
No, look, I totally get where you're coming from, because really, this is a science fantasy. This movie, it's not science fiction per se. It's not, well, I mean, it's a continuum. You've got hard science fiction on one end, and you've got wild science fantasy right at the other end. And this is probably a little closer to, well, it's probably 1/3 of the way from complete science fantasy, because I mean they propose some things that, while being quite far-fetched, maybe there was some way that it could actually happen. And I want to see a video from someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson explaining it to me before I bought into the possibility. But I mean, I looked at this, and luckily I hadn't, like, I'm not a physicist, so I hadn't gone into what a Bose-Einstein condensate was. I'd heard of them, but I didn't know specifically what it was. So I sort of just said, fine, maybe this is possible. I'll look into it later. And I enjoyed the movie for what it was. They had explanations in inverted commas which worked in the world of the movie, and I actually find internal logical inconsistency within the movie universe to be more distracting than science bent out of shape to fit the story. I mean, if they want to connect various things in science that don't have any connection as far as the data shows in the real world, in their version of reality, which is contained in the movie, then that's fine, as long as it's internally consistent, as long as it makes sense from the opening of the movie to the end of the movie. I don't have a problem with it, because that's their universe. That's them playing with physics the way it works in the movie universe. It doesn't have to be exactly right as far as our world is concerned, because it's not our world. There's no civil war going on in the capital Moldova at the moment. The US military is not working over there. And, they do not have goggles that are ultra spectrum that can see, like, what is effectively spirits. So, yeah, I mean, we don't have those technologies. In the universe in which this movie is set, they do. So, okay, there's other things going on in there that don't match up with our universe. That's fine. As long as it's internally consistent, I don't have too much of a problem with it. That's why I can sit and watch Star Wars and go, oh, yeah, lasers that go slow enough that you can actually see the start and end of them. That's fine. That's what happens in their galaxy far, far away a long time ago. I'm not going to have a problem with it, because it's not the real world.
Well, if you think about it, the galaxy was a lot more condensed back then, so it might be possible for lasers to, when they added together, right?
No, just because light has a speed limit doesn't mean you can go below the speed limit.
Don't
It's
you
not like slow lane, medium lane, fast lane, all right?
don't you agree that at the beginning of the universe it was an Bose-Einstein condensate?
Could have been, I wasn't there. Couldn't measure it, sorry.
Oh, nice. Oh, this is awesome. There was one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I'm gonna ask the question because I find it so hard not to be able to talk about the topic that I want to talk about because we were going to talk about it in the end. But
Yeah, I'm doing
I
that too.
got
I'm
confused.
talking around it.
yes, can we at least talk about the states of matter?
Just save it for the end. We don't need to do it now.
Okay, so here's the reason why I was asking that question, because I wanted to explain to the listeners and the viewers what's happening here. Why this spectrum or this spectral entity, what is the effect on the human body, and what are we seeing? Because and the reason why I'm saying this is because I watched this movie with my wife, and she had questions. She wasn't sure what she was seeing. Understand this from the beginning of the film, obviously. And as part of many stories, this is what makes a story great, is how they're kind of like give you the information, but they don't give you all until the end. But I want to kind of explain somehow, without touching the topic at the end of this show, what is happening.
It's a drip fed mystery. Basically, it's sort of the genre of drip fed mystery. So overlaying the military aspect and the sci-fi aspect is a drip fed mystery. What the hell is going on here? We've got to discover what the hell's going on. And mysteries are the things that draw us into stories. You look at all of the Indiana Jones movies; they're all mysteries.
Mm. Yeah,
trying to uncover ancient mysteries about artifacts and things like that. And stop the Nazis from getting hold of them, or whatever bad guy of the week we're dealing with against the good guys, the US at the time. So it's all sort of like this mystery drawing you in, and I think they did a really good job with sort of going, okay, well, there's this spectral entity, or no, it's not a spectral entity. It's somebody wearing optical camouflage. It's like, bullets go straight through them, lady. I don't think that works.
It's kind of funny how he mentioned, like, I work for DARPA, and we are like years away from a prototype. So she's like, well, maybe someone beat you to it. Now, if you are aware of what DARPA is, you know that they are at the forefront of in that field. So, well, I like to think they are. I mean, I don't know if maybe there's another organization, but the point is, he brings it up in the film and saying, like, we are the forefront. So I doubt, and there's reasons why. And of course, coming back to reality, that is actually an impossibility at this point, right? I don't want to dismiss, because science always changes and there's always new discoveries. But as it is right now, it's not something that could be easily done. It's fun, but
well, if you follow the conspiracy theory of the actual technology level is 10 to 15 years ahead of what is released, then there could be certain areas of the government that do have technologies like this. But personally, I think that it's more likely that the lowest common denominator, or the idiot factor being involved, that it's very hard to keep these things secret for very long, because somebody's going to screw up and show it off to the public.
and
So
We're connected as we are.
Exactly. Oh dear.
We have to explain it for the audio listeners.
Oh, it's a meme, so you gotta come and watch it on YouTube channel. I'm gonna make you come and subscribe and share. That's what it's all about, man.
Yeah, you just want that ass tattoo, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
He's
That way I
saving a
can-
special
I
spot
can
on his
pride
butt cheek.
myself to say that my ass got us where we are today.
Okay. Okay,
Oh
what's
my God.
the favorite word here? Moving on. So you were saying, Ray, I don't know if we cut you off, but
I think my train is thoroughly derailed. No, look, I was going to say that the whole point of believing that only the US military researchers can come up with something is a little far-fetched.
yes.
In that breakthroughs happen all the time, and they're usually what the fuck was that moments rather than eureka moments.
Mm-hmm.
Because discoveries are just that you can stumble upon them. Of course, the higher the technology level, the harder it is to stumble upon things. And you've got to have a certain amount of financial backing and construction know-how to build the base requirements to then push things forward. The technology initially for any breakthrough is usually massive and hard to build. You're building it by hand. It's much larger than a finished working construction would be. The prototypes are usually much bigger and built from existing things. And then once the theory is proven solid and you can create something from that theory, then the miniaturization phase kicks in and they try and make it smaller and less energy reliant and easier to transport. And then you'd have something wearable that you could use. But getting to that point requires a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of expertise, and a lot of base level technology before you can then create something that's lighter and easier to wear and small enough that you don't have to have it plugged into a massive power plant. Yeah. And, all those sort of limitations that early prototypes have. You saw the massive camera that he had to light the things up when he converted it from a camera into a spotlight. And he had to have it plugged into the main power plant of the vehicle. And then he converted it to a spotlight and managed to hook it up to a car battery, and that was enough power, which I thought, okay. But he was a total MacGyver. Like, he MacGyvered the shit out of everything. Without him, they were screwed. So they were lucky that he didn't catch a spectral entity and go down, because if he'd been one who died early on, they would have just, the whole world would have been nuked by these things.
So let me see if I can say it in this way without touching the topic that we're all dancing around. To me, when for something to become translucent, kind of like fog, the atoms have to be super excited.
Woo!
And I knew he was going to go there. Super excited.
Well, they don't necessarily need to be super excited. They need to be widely dispersed enough that they're not visible.
But what about
which
photons?
Usually involves super excitement.
What about photons?
Well, the atoms, whichever within the atomic bond. Now, where I was going with that is the faster the atoms move, the higher in temperature that generally that is. So that is the first, and notice how I'm dancing around the topic. I am so dancing around it. And that is the very first thing that I noticed that I had an issue with, because in theory, and again, this is, let me just give you an example. So this is how you have metal and why the metal liquefies when you heat it up. So it goes from, it becoming a piece of metal rod, into a molten, liquid. This is also why you get water that is liquid, and when you're making spaghetti, for example, you heat it up, and you get the steam coming out. So you're basically, the reason why I'm saying these examples is you have to kind of apply heat. In theory, if that thing that you're doing is heated, it's let me say it a different way. If you put your hands on steam, you're gonna get burned. So these entities, in order for when I was looking at this, obviously without touching the subject, we'll discuss. When I look at this, in my mind, I was thinking the only possible way that these could be the way that I'm looking at, that I'm seeing them, if assuming that they're not ghost, right? Because I'm thinking in fact and factual, and although ghosts are a thing that people know about, there's no experimentations, there's no scientific things that have actually
There's no practical demonstration of it.
Yeah, there's no experimentation. So I'm gonna take that away from the equation for now, and say, okay, what I'm looking at, in order for that thing to be the way that we see it on the film, it has to be heated. So what happens is when the spectral entity touches a human, and we can see this because they mentioned, we know this because they mention it clearly throughout the film, is in a matter of seconds, the insides of that person are frozen, and the skin of the person is burned from cold. It's like the same kind of, when you're frozen, when you're
Like frostbite.
Frostbite, exactly.
Insta frostbite.
Yeah. So,
well, kind of like what nitrogen would do if you get in contact with it, right?
isn't it hydrogen?
I thought it was called nitrogen. Fuming liquid, you touch it, petrifies you right away.
Liquid nitrogen is commonly used to freeze things very quickly.
Oh, okay.
Snap freeze.
So why am I saying all this is because I immediately felt a contradiction. And we'll get into it, but do you guys yeah, it's so hard to dance around the topic. Do you guys
do you just want to do last thoughts and go to science behind science fiction? You feel much happier.
But I just, without touching the subject, I wanted to get your answers.
This is Robert talking about the subject, guys. For whoever is watching, actually, this is Robert going about the subject right now.
Oh God, that's from Yoshiki, and
I'm not gonna say anymore. If you know, you know.
Just before the blood starts flowing.
If you know, you know.
So I wanted to. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because I want to get your thoughts, because it's something that I don't want to say bothered me. Maybe that's I'm going to say, because I can't find a better word, about what I was looking at. And especially after I did my small research on the topic. Did you guys, and I guess I can start with Gio and then we can move on to Ray. Did you guys felt what I felt during, that kind of demonstration? Or is this something that you kind of like, oh well, just is what it is. Maybe it's a new subject that I have no idea about.
When I saw it, I took it like, I know it's a crazy comparison, but you remember when you were watching Naruto, for example, or
Mm.
Bleach, and they're explaining you the science behind the souls or the chakra. You know that that's not true, but they get all geeked out and they give you a very far fetched and very elaborated explanation. I
Technobot.
took it the same way. You know,
Okay.
it was like a technicality made up so you could understand what that's supposed to be rooted from.
Technobabble.
Technobot.
Well, yeah, there you go.
It happens a lot in Star Trek. A lot.
Yep.
So, okay, cool. I'll take that. I mean, I do that with Star Trek, and you know, there's a lot of stuff that is completely.
In Star Wars, they don't even go that deep, right?
Um,
To be clear, guys, I like Star Wars.
They don't need.
Is it my turn to break, Robert?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So Robert. You accept that when the spectral entities come into contact with at least physio-liquid beings, being humans, because we're 60% water, they insta-freeze.
Mhm.
So obviously the Bose-Einstein condensate is at a very low temperature, and when it comes into contact with a person, it freezes them. Is that your understanding?
And you
Is that-
went straight there.
Is that your understanding?
I know where Ray's
So
going.
why
Daniel
couldn't they
Frozen.
just use standard thermal goggles to spot these things?
Exactly.
No, and why they didn't just fall apart and break into pieces when they fall into the ground? Then they were limp. If it's
Well-
frozen, it will crack down and break down.
Well, you'll get why kind of kind of when we get to the science and science fiction. But no, yeah, I see where you're going with that. But yeah, Ray, you have a point. It's just like, why? You know that that would be the first thing, like the first fatality on this thing. When the doctors look at that body and they see, okay, yeah, this guy froze to death. Oh, maybe we need some goggles to detect low temperature. But that never happened throughout the entire thing. They continue using, you know,
Thermal goggles have been around since probably Vietnam War.
exactly.
Be pretty easy to just whack a set of them on.
Oh,
You'd be able to see people and these things because they become blue-white, and they'd be pretty damn obvious, I think.
it
And we're
is.
saving an awful lot of time and money coming up with these projectors and shit.
Don't the military currently uses those for
Thermal
special?
goggles. Yeah, but usually they use them at night because during the day things are hot enough that they'd white out most of the time.
You will go
anyway.
blind.
Yeah.
With the glare.
So you'd have to tweak them, but I think that it would be pretty damn obvious that there'd be a black space where these things would be because it'd be projecting no thermal heat at all.
Yeah.
Be like a thermal black hole. So you'd have the people being red, yellow, white, and surfaces with sun hitting them would be red, yellow, white, mostly white, and then you'd have these black holes shaped like people flying around.
Yeah.
Now, this is gonna beg your noodle, Ray and Robert. Is there's certainly some kind of state of matter condensed because when the helicopter gets nearby, they are unable to fight the current of the wind. It's like it's actually throwing them off.
It wasn't actually the wind throwing them off. It was that he'd thrown down all those jars of iron filings, and the wind from the helicopter was pushing the iron filings into the spectral entities.
But I mean, if you think about it, that thing would have flown off and be blown off within seconds. But they continually got stopped, so more would have come and not be affected by it and pass by it. It was like it was creating like an aura or like a barrier where the wind weakened out, so they could not come closer.
Let me try to explain it. The location where they were at had a high concentration of iron filings on the ground. So just by kicking dirt with the the wind coming from the rotters would be enough to kick the minimal amount of iron filings on the ground. And this is why we see when the doctor smashed the bottles of iron filing, how it intensified because now it's a concentrated amount. But the whole place where they were at, it had like filings, and not necessarily like because we could see ground, right? So by the fact that we can see ground, we know that the concentration of iron filings might not be as much as when they were at a factory. Remember when they were at a factory, how the ground was completely black? This in this area where they were, they were, but they were not that concentrated as it was when they were in the factory. That's the way that I take it, though. I might be completely wrong. What is your thought, Ray, on that scene?
I thought that I mean, they slowed it down so you could see what was happening. So I think it was a fairly short period of time. But yeah, they'd been hit by the iron filings, and the pressure wave from the downdraft of the helicopter kept pushing the iron filings into them. So that was what was pushing them back. That's how I read it.
Okay. So the boson Einstein, I just find that funny. I was trying to avoid to mention that explanation. So going back to what I was saying, because you brought a completely different perspective, and I never really thought about that. How, I mean, the heat cameras are so widely available that you could actually go into YouTube and find and purchase ones for yourself right now. So I mean, that's how widely available they are. So
you can get thermal goggles that you just put on, and they require power, like the battery power, but you can see thermal imagery with a set of goggles. And I'm sure that the military would be able to, especially Delta Force Special Forces, would have thermal goggles for night vision available. And these things would be super cold. So rather than seeing the thermal shape of a person, which would be red, yellow, white, you would see just a black zone, and everything else around it would be heated to some extent. So it would be colors, black. Okay, this one.
I really didn't think about that, but it makes a lot of sense because, and you know, this, the reason why I said this is a widely available technology, it is something that is already out there. And in my thought, and you guys can correct me if you feel I'm wrong, but in my thought process, it's a technology that is out there already. Number one, it would be easier to tweak that technology to being able to see it in the daytime. That's number one. Number two, these beings, let's call them beings, they're at 0 Kelvin
or close to it,
or close to it. There's nothing right now. I like to think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to say this statement is going to sound like a blanket statement, but on Earth, I don't think there's nothing. I mean, in my mind, you would have to go to space to get something. I mean, unless you're in a laboratory, obviously, where you can bring the temperature down, but there's nothing out on the wild, on the streets that actually is 0 or close to 0 Kelvin.
No, not at all.
And just to give you an example, and I'm going to ask this question: what is the coldest temperature that you could comes to mind? It doesn't. You don't have to think about it that much. But what is the coldest temperature? Maybe you read it on the news that this town got hit with the coldest temperature on record, or whatever.
Minus 60 degrees centigrade Celsius, which is something like minus 80 or 90 Fahrenheit.
Okay,
I think somewhere around there.
Gio,
actually, I wondered that kind of stupid questions, and I found out what's the coldest place in the world. It's called Yakutsk in Siberia, which actually goes to the hottest that you can find in Mars. It gets there. You can see minus 65, minus 70, and there's people that live in there. There's towns in there.
And what is the coldest temperature?
Minus 65, minus 70. Right now, I'm gonna tell you, Yakutsk weather, I'm gonna tell you, it's minus 38 right now. It's the coldest place in the world. It's in Siberia. It's called Yakutsk. It's like one of those questions that I wonder, like, what's the coldest place in the world? And then I compare it to Mars. Like in Mars, it gets as warm as minus 60.
No, I think it's 70, if I'm not mistaken. But here's the reason why I was asking that question.
So, no, let me just correct that, because he's telling you the coldest inhabited place on Earth where people live, right? The lowest temperature recorded on Earth, so the lowest natural temperature ever directly recorded at ground level on Earth is minus 89.2 degrees Celsius, which was recorded at the then Soviet Vostok station in Antarctica on the 21st of July, 1983, by ground measurements.
Wow, that is cold. Okay, so here's the reason why I was asking that question. Because I'm going to throw out a number. It might not be exact, but we are not being exact here. My goal is to get as close to Kelvin as possible.
Yeah, so that's minus 128.56 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow. So
chilly.
That your frozen peas are super frozen.
you can leave the beer outside, right?
Yeah. Well, no, you can't, because it'd be ice blocks. It'd be ice blocks. Yeah.
Unless you want a beer Slurpee.
No, it would be kind of like a popsicle, right?
You'd be a popsicle. You'd have to lick it, and your tongue would stick to it. So you screwed.
Yeah.
No beer for you. No beer. No beer.
Bad idea.
So the reason why I was asking this question is because we know that these beans are close to 0 Kelvin, but you guys have no idea what 0 Kelvin is. Well, most of you, right? So 0 Kelvin, it's around, and I'm going to say this because I don't have the exact number, and
holy shit,
Ray might have it.
The science in sci-fi.
We might as well just go there, because that's what you're doing right now.
Shit, man.
It is what? Hold on a second. Before I say the approximate number, because
I find out what's 1 Kelvin. That's cool.
Don't go there. Tell me, Ray, again, how much in Fahrenheit, in Celsius, if you have it, both numbers, the coldest recorded temperature. One more time.
So it was minus 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus 89.2 degrees Celsius.
Okay. So these beans that we see in the film are approximately, and I'm not going to tell you the real number. We'll talk about that in the science. It's around 200. Let me rephrase that. Minus 200 Celsius, minus 500 Fahrenheit.
Yeah,
That is a big number. And the reason
1 Kelvin.
the reason why I'm bringing it up it is because we're talking about the technology, right? For something that drastic, there would be anything that you could do to the current technology right now, to these heat sensors, to make it completely visible in the daytime, where you can kind of skew the scale, right? Calibrate it, right? Anything you do, doesn't matter how drastic and how unrealistic or how unaccurate they could be, where maybe you put it on and it doesn't matter. Anything in comparison to these beams will be visible on that spectrum. Because of the drastic difference between, and again, we're talking about the coldest recorded on Earth. That doesn't mean that that's what you're going to see on the street, especially on, what's the city, Moldova?
Yeah, no, it doesn't get that hot over there.
So anything.
Yeah, next to Romania, it gets like Caribbean warm throughout the year.
Exactly. So, I mean, do you see, I don't know if you see the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I mean, it should freeze and crack wherever they step or touch. That is physical.
It would be so simple to create some sort of a visible goggle, and they don't have to depend on these like spotlight.
No, just like Ray mentioned, they should be visible with infrared because it will create a dark spot wherever they are. Literally, it would eliminate any heat that it can be on our atmosphere. It would just black it out on a heat sensor. It will make a black spot wherever they are. And honestly, if it touches a brick wall, it should crack that brick wall and destroy it, right?
Yeah, I was about to say that when one of those entities passes through a wall, the thing should snap freeze.
Yes.
I mean, I was gonna save all this for the science behind sci-fi, but Robert just can't keep it in his pants, so we're there now, and you just got to go there, don't you? You can't help
Well,
yourself.
if you want, I can ask the last question. I mean, how?
Yeah.
Oh my God! And you know, if you are not following on YouTube, you might as well just go. You have no clue what just happened.
No, normally I abuse the ticker, but today it's Chaos's turn. He's
Yeah,
abusing the
you know how I like it, man. You know how I like it.
Well, it doesn't get much harder than close to 0 Kelvin, man.
Exactly. Okay, so I guess we're gonna go there. We're gonna ask the final question for this episode, and the question that we always ask in this episode at the end is your final thoughts on the film. So obviously in this film, the answers will definitely vary because at least out of the three of us, I'm the only one who actually seen it. Not only when it came out, but I've seen it multiple times after. But it's actually a first time for the two of you. So I feel that I should, let you take a turn and see who wants to go first, and I'll probably go last in here, unless you guys feel I should go first.
I can go first. I'm the less scientific one here. I think it's a fun movie. What do you say?
I like that word, scientific-y.
Yeah, new word for the dictionary.
That's my
English
new word for
dictionary.
the day, scientific.
Scientific.
We should start a wiki, right, where we can have our very own dictionary words.
Yeah, that's a great idea, man. I'm gonna work on that. I think that this is a fun watch. Well, not fun because it's comedy, but it's entertaining. It does what a good movie and a good storytelling story can do. Storytelling story. Wow. Pleonasm. But I think that it kept me entertained. It has a good plot, and it has a good development of the whole story. And again, you guys have messed me up. I used to be overcritical of shit, and I'm not anymore. So you can show me now the science in ponies jumping on rainbows, and I want to take it for what it is and enjoy it. with a pinch of campiness. And I think that it's like the explanation I did. It's like when we're watching animes that they actually give you a very elaborated explanation of something that is not real science, but it does the job to entertain the idea that in that realm of fiction or fantasy, it's real, you know? And I think that it's something that is for more of an adult or adolescent public, but that it's entertaining for sure. And it has a nice message too. It's like I always say, doesn't matter what happens. We tend to be a very divided species, but in the face of adversity, we always come together. And that's one of the social messages that this brings up to.
Cool. Okay, so do you want to go next, Ray, or should
Yeah,
I?
You're less scientific, Robert, maybe.
Do not cast a scientific eye across this movie if you want to enjoy it. Because I mean, I only saw it last night, so I haven't had a long time to mull it over. But the more we talk about it, the more holes I'm spotting. So I just have to stop if I want to enjoy this movie.
It is
But
scientific-y. That's why.
Yeah. Don't get too scientific-y on this movie, or you will not enjoy it. You can quote me on that one. I got to use your word.
Woohoo!
But yeah, I mean, for what it is, it was enjoyable. I felt the military aspects felt really grounded. It
Good
felt very
morning, Ray.
MacGyver-esque.
I'm not sure.
So, what? Alexa thought I was asking questions, but I wasn't.
I am not sure.
Yeah, well, it kind of sums up what I'm thinking. Really, I'm not sure. Oh dear. But yeah, I enjoyed the watch, but the more I think about it, the more holes I'm picking in these entities. So unless there was some way that they could stop their hyper condensed, very cold state from interacting with things, then you should see a snow trail wherever they go. So yeah, I mean, it was a fun little movie. I did enjoy it. I saw what they were trying to do. It doesn't quite work in the real world, but in their world, fine. That's all right. It was very sort of Command and Conquer-esque, Brotherhood of Nod, super sciencey kind of thing, which I kind of enjoy. And if you don't think too hard about the science, you can have a lot of fun with this movie. So I do recommend it. Just don't think too hard, all right? Just park your brain and enjoy it for what it is.
It feels when I see Ray saying that he likes this movie, in his face, it feels like he's doing a dirty confession.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
Gotcha.
I do.
You got me. You got me. I admit to it.
I do understand. I do understand.
It's like my peers are gonna think I'm a freak.
I
But I
do.
like it.
I do understand 100% because yes, you have to definitely suspend your disbelief. You definitely have to leave your science at the door before you watch this. Definitely. It's not. It's gonna be. Yeah, it's not gonna be good. But it is a very enjoyable film. I really enjoyed it. And again, just to bring home what I mentioned before at the beginning. It's the way, if you do that, the way that they display science is, at least to my perspective, it's not distracting. Now, if you are, because I know some people that are this way, it's okay, where you can't separate from science. Not only are you going to find it very, very distracting, but you're not. I don't think you're going to enjoy it as much. I mean, what do you guys think?
I could add to that it's a formula for that to happen. If you have a weak plot and you don't have a compelling story, yes, it's gonna become too distracting. But if you balance it out with a good compelling story and a good plot and a good pact of action, it's easier for you to like let it go and enjoy the rest of it. This movie did a great job because of that, because they had a robust combination of all the other things. If it would have been a crappy plot, or like there's not really backstory or anything that would make up for the lack of other things, yeah, it would have been a terrible movie. But not the case. It's a good director and a good cast, and they did a good job on that part to make it an enjoyable movie. That's what I think.
Now, let me explain, and I agree with what you just said. And let me explain a little bit of what I was just saying, probably put it in a different perspective. There has been some movies out there that I've seen where I suspend my disbelief, I suspend my science. I watch the movie. The movie is enjoyable, but it's very distracting. And even though I am suspending my disbelief, because maybe in the storytelling way that they're using for that particular IP. I don't know. I'm not sure why, but some of those are very distracting, even though I suspect. And I'm not saying that particular film is bad, because I enjoy that. Now, this film, I do the same thing. I suspend my disbelief. I suspend my science. But I did not find it distracting. Yes, I had tons of questions, as you guys saw from previous on this episode, how some things kind of like, go the different way. But it wasn't distracting to me, at least. And I was able to enjoy the film. And it's a really, really enjoyable film. The more times that I watch it, the more I enjoy it. Also, the more questions that I have.
Yeah.
Like one of the examples that I can point it out, it's not an example that came from one of my rewatches. It's an example that I came to realize by actually doing this episode with you guys and watching your perspective. That perspective that Ray said, what happens when these entities cross through walls? And this is something that I didn't really think about, and it makes a lot of sense. But this is from, Ray's perspective, something that I never considered. But even at that, those are questions that I always ask in every film. When I'm watching the film, when I'm maybe finished the film and I'm analyzing it. But there's a big difference, at least to me. And let me know if you guys understand where I'm coming from, or if you have anything to add. At least to me, it is not. There's a big difference between that and being distracting.
Well, to kind of second and complete that, I do understand what you're saying. You say that you have to suspend your disbelief, right? And when a movie is doing the good job, like I say, you don't have to do that active effort to really work against your own innate necessity to find the logic after it. So that means that the movie did a good job on selling you out whatever story they're giving you, being fantasy, sci-fi, even if it's more into the fantasy spectrum, because a lot of people will try that out of trying to find something to make it more compelling. So that's what I'm saying. Once the movie has a good balance on storytelling, a good plot, the proper cast, because that's something important that many people don't think about. It is sometimes if you get the wrong cast, you can have the best story ever, but if it's not well represented by the characters, it's just a tragedy.
Okay, so before we move on, because we got to get to the next segment, I agree with what you say 100%, but what you're saying is different to what I was saying. It's a complete different thing. So I agree 100% what you just said. And this is why this movie, I don't know, maybe it is a reason as to why this movie is so enjoyable.
Yeah.
Right? Because that plays a big part into it. Ray, your thought on my comment. Obviously, we have Gio's perspective that I have not considered before, and it makes a lot of sense. What do you think about the two perspectives, or if you have your own perspective?
I mean, there's obvious plot holes that really derail your enjoyment of a movie. I didn't find any in this movie. It was internally consistent, and in being internally consistent to a certain level, it didn't bother me. But if you sit down and really think hard about it, and I'm going to cover that very shortly in the Science Beyond Sci-Fi, there's massive holes in the science. So we will cover that. But on the surface level, if you're not a science junkie, you can enjoy this movie. And science junkies, if they just turn off their disbelief as they walk into the cinema and watch the movie, it's fine. But yeah, there's some holes. So we'll cover them shortly.
Awesome. Okay, so now we are going to address the elephant in the room.
The 0 degree Kelvin elephant.
Science and sci-fi.
Oh boy, here we go. Okay, so how do you remotely operate a 3D printed Bose-Einstein condensate RV, as it were, with an extracted neurology of a human being? How does that work? How does that? I mean, it's super science. It's completely bonkers. How does it work? It doesn't. As far as I understand.
I want the instruction manual for that 3D printer. That 3D printer to print humans. I want the
in
instruction.
boson condensate. And how that okay, so let me throw a massive spanner about the size of the moon into the works of this movie. Okay. Equilibrium. Does anybody understand the concept of equilibrium, especially when it has to do with energy and temperature? Could either of you guys give me a rough description of what equilibrium is?
Well, I was going to say the chaos doesn't believe
It's a great movie. I really enjoyed that movie. You've covered. It's been covered. You guys covered it in season 1.
But you're talking about
But
the
that's all I'm-
equilibrium, the movie, or equilibrium, the concept?
Equilibrium, the concept when it
Yeah.
has to do with energy and temperature.
So to me, equilibrium, my comprehension of it is that is actually the sum of all factors together that creates a balance.
All situations where things are not in equilibrium attempt to move towards equilibrium. So
It regulates itself.
You open the refrigerator door, like you open the freezer door, you see the cold coming out. You see the waves of cold coming out, right? Cold doesn't actually exist. It's an absence of heat.
Yeah.
So the heat's actually going in, pushing the fumes of condensed cold out.
Yeah. Dark
right?
doesn't really exist. It's just the absence of light.
That's right. That is correct. So basically, when you are trying to get something down to near 0 degrees Kelvin, you're removing all the energy from it. You're removing all the heat from it. Because heat and energy are basically the same thing. The amount that the atoms are moving represents how warm the thing is.
In other words, you're talking about some form of conditioning.
Yeah, but we think something's cold when we get it out of the freezer and go, oh, that's cold, right? Why it feels cold is because the heat has been sucked out of your body and you feel that as a disruption to your equilibrium. So there's the greater equilibrium, the equilibrium between you and the cold thing, but there's the equilibrium within your body as well, which is being disrupted, and that's what you're feeling. You're feeling the heat being sucked out of you by the cold thing as it is attempting to reach equilibrium with you.
That's
and
why
the
their
environment.
bodies don't crack like glass when they fall and they're more limp.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, but everything attempts to reach equilibrium. That is why we have environmental circulations of fluids and air and everything. Everything's trying to reach equilibrium, but things get heated up or cooled down differently, and then it all starts moving. And that's why we have an atmosphere that has weather circulations in it, because of the constant attempt to reach equilibrium.
So here are a part of that system.
Oh, totally. Everything physical is part of that. Now, there's parts of the solar system where it's close to 0 degrees Kelvin because it doesn't receive much light from the sun. It doesn't get much energy. So it's very, very cold. And its equilibrium is very low. But if you attempt to do that on a planet like Earth, which is equilibrium is around 22 degrees Celsius, or is it 68 Fahrenheit, I think, roughly? Somewhere around there. That's the equilibrium point on Earth, and everything is attempting to work its way to there. But due to local conditions, it's not. It's either being heated up or not being heated up.
I like the point that you make on places where the light of a star doesn't reach, that is close to 0 kelvins. But if you think about it, then it's really a relative thing that it's equilibrium there because that's the normal conditions for it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Now you've got this Bose-Einstein condensate, which can only form at nearly 0 degrees. So it's really, really hard to get to close to 0 degrees. Physicists spend huge amounts of time and money creating devices to try and get close to that temperature on Earth. And it's only in a sealed system, and you can only do it for very short amounts of time because it uses a huge amount of energy. They weren't lying when they said that this research facility had to be near a nuclear power plant or some sort of power plant with a huge amount of energy, because it's required to pull the heat from that. Refrigeration, in the way that it works, is basically removing the heat by condensation to create cold. It's just basically removing heat. You remove heat to create cold. You reduce the amount of vibration in the atoms, and then they get closer together. And let me just show you this image. Now, where the hell did I hide it? There it is. Okay. So let me share this with you.
I have a quick question after you do that.
Okay, so there's the 5 states of matter. You start out with solids, liquid, and gases, which is what we have on Earth. We have all 3 of those states because, especially for water, they're not that far apart. For other substances, they can be much further apart, temperature-wise. But for water, which is sort of the basis of life on Earth, those 3 states are only 100 degrees Celsius apart, which is kind of handy. Enables us to have life on Earth. Of course, if you want plasma or Bose-Einstein condensate, you're going much further. And really, those 2 on the end should be way further apart. If you wanted to do this on a sliding scale, then the solid, liquid, and gases of water would be pretty close together, and then the condensate and the plasmas would be way further on either end. So what a Bose-Einstein condensate is, according to the definition, now where have I got that hidden? I've got too many windows. Okay, so a Bose-Einstein condensate is a state of matter which is typically formed when a gas of bosons is at a very low density and is cooled to an extremely low temperature. So what would normally happen when you reduce the temperature, I take energy away from a gas of bosons, is that they would condense and they would come closer together. The less energy, the closer together. But this is an artificial state where the gas is cooled to an extremely low temperature, but not allowed to coalesce and come closer together. But it actually condenses on a surface and it's kept apart. So it's an artificial state of matter. It's not something that naturally occurs. So this research facility is producing these Bose-Einstein condensates, but then they've scanned human bodies and reprinted them as this Bose-Einstein condensate with the 3D printer. Sure. Okay. Now, presuming you could do that in a closed system, which is using a huge amount of energy, keeps sucking the energy out of it so that you're keeping it at a very low temperature. Then you release this thing into the environment. Equilibrium would come into effect very, very quickly, and the thing would freeze pretty much everything it came into contact with, the atmosphere, any physical objects. Fair enough. If it went, well, first of all, you've got a Bose-Einstein condensate of a human. Now, humans are made of lots of different things: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, helium, and there's a whole bunch of other little bits and pieces, magnesium. I think we take vitamins and we eat food that has lots of different things in it because we need it for the biological functions of the body. Sure, you could 3D print something that looked like a human in bosons. I don't doubt that you could somehow do that if you had the technology, but would it function like a human? No, not really, because it's not made up of all the other things that make it work. But suspending reality for a second and saying, okay, you could do that.
It's some crazy far-fetched quantum mechanics, maybe.
Yes. Quantum mechanics would come into effect because you're near zero. Definitely. But how you would take a nervous system out of a human, separate it from all the other bits, somehow keep it alive, and then have it remote pilot a boson version of itself.
What entanglement?
It would have to be entanglement. It'd have to be something like that.
Yeah.
But presuming you could even do that, right? I'm giving a lot of leeway to super science bullshit here, right?
It's making me feel smart.
Saying that all of that worked, then somehow it's got to get around in the environment and not dissipate because it's going to be sapping. See, equilibrium works that if you're further away from equilibrium, you're going to want to get there faster, right? Because the environment would be providing you with way more energy than you've currently got. So you'd get there really quickly because you basically suck the heat and the energy out of the environment. So sure, if something like that passed through a human, I could see it flash freezing them. But it will also flash freeze the atmosphere. It flash freeze the walls that it passed through. It flash freeze anything as it sucked the heat out of it to get closer to equilibrium. So I can't see these things staying together for more than a couple of milliseconds. Yep, science the shit out of it. This thing would escape from its environment of ultra cold, get out into the environment, suddenly the environment would go frozen, and it would evaporate because it could no longer be a condensate because it would no longer be close to zero.
Yeah.
So it couldn't exist in the atmosphere because the atmosphere would provide it with the energy it needed to get closer to equilibrium, and suddenly it would no longer be a condensate.
You know, it reminds me very much to the reaction that dry ice has once it's in the outer environment that is not contained anymore.
It is exactly the same as that.
Yeah.
Dry ice, liquid nitrogen. You put any of that in a normal environment, it will start boiling.
Yep.
Because it is desperately trying to reach equilibrium. It's sucking the heat out of the environment.
Yeah, the reaction itself is started sublimation process right away.
Exactly.
Because it's trying to reach balance.
Yeah, exactly.
I do have a question. It's something that
really? That's so unusual for you.
I was researching online, and everywhere I looked, unless I'm finding the wrong sources, they're mentioning the 5 natural states of matter, being solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. Right? Am I correct so far?
Those are 4, not 5.
4. 4 natural states of matter. Natural. Keyword natural. Is that correct? Or am I looking?
I did see something, just a headline the other day saying there was something like 32 states of matter, but I'm not sure if that's correct. So,
well, here's what I'm trying to get, because I found places, and this film kind of hints into it, that the Bose-Einstein it's not a natural state. It was actually created by humans. Is that correct?
I'm not a physicist, so I don't know exactly.
Oh, okay.
It's probably some caveats.
Well,
ask Neil deGrasse Tyson, man.
I found, and you know, maybe I need to research more into it, but I found articles that said that, you know, it's not a natural state that it was created. It is a state of matter, but it's not found naturally.
So there's 4 naturally occurring observable states of matter: solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. Okay. According to the Science Learning Hub, which I'm looking at right now.
Okay, so far I am good on that part of the research, at least. So in theory, the Bose-Einstein is a man-made state of matter, which I have to find an article on it anyway. So you know, take this with a grain of salt. Now, here's where my question comes. The universe is huge. 0 Kelvin is found naturally in the universe. There's obviously places in the universe where it's 0 Kelvin.
There's places in the universe where it can get close to 0 degrees Kelvin, but I don't know that we've found one that actually hits it.
Okay. So,
but it's only off by points of degrees.
Yeah. So where I'm trying to get with this is, I find it hard to believe. I mean, yeah, I know that it could be done, right? Because obviously, there's places on the Earth where, you know, you can remove the heat enough that you can go close to Kelvin and maybe create a Bose-Einstein condensate. But I find it hard to believe that there's not one place in the universe where this state happens naturally. I just can't comprehend, because there's such a wide range on temperature within the universe. And obviously the way we understand that is basically, let's take, for example, suns, right? The stars that we see. So we know that the closer you are, the hotter it is, the far apart you are, the colder it would be. But there are actually rogue planets that there's millions and millions of light years away from a sun. So that's where that was the question that I had, that I was going to put in it. It's probably not a question that will get an answer, because I understand the level of complexity of that. But I just wanted to say that I find it very hard to believe when I hear statements that say that Bose-Einstein condensate is a man-made state of matter, and I just, for some reason, I cringe.
Well, it probably should be better described as a man-made state of matter in our current environment.
Yeah.
It cannot exist naturally on Earth.
On Earth. I would be okay when they say that, on Earth.
If you want to put it on technicality, you can say that it's a emulated state of matter. So it means that it's a more technical way to put it, that it doesn't occur naturally where it's happening. So if you emulate something, you are making it happen. It's not happening naturally. So you can call it an emulated state of matter.
See, human beings have their own equilibrium, and it's 36 point something degrees Celsius in the body, and the environment around 22 degrees. That's where we function the best. And if you go above or below that, we start to suffer to the point where it will kill us. So going somewhere and experimenting at near 0 degrees Kelvin is practically impossible for a human, because it would kill us. Even with protective suits and things, we currently have no technology to allow us to do that. And of course, when there's so little energy in the environment, it's very hard to do things, because stuff doesn't want to move. Everything wants to stay frozen and still and stiff, because there's no energy in the environment to allow it to move. So actually going somewhere and finding this and examining it would be very, very hard, because it's not a state of energy balance that we can survive in. It's not natural for us. So that makes it very difficult. A lot of it's theoretical, some of it's practical, but very artificial, because we have to create that situation in a lab, in a very specifically designed piece of equipment, set of circumstances, to actually demonstrate that it's physically possible. But actually going somewhere where it naturally occurs would kill us horribly with the current technology that we have, and maybe we would never be able to go to somewhere like that, because it just is so different from our normal equilibrium that we live and exist and thrive under. So going there and saying, hey, look at that, it's not something we can do.
Just you wait till we have submarines that are lava resistant.
Hey, Captain K.
Hey, there's a movie about that.
Oh my god.
The core. We should do the core.
Captain K, can you touch that Bose-Einstein condensate?
Come again?
Hey, Chaos, why don't you go ahead and grab that Bose-Einstein condensate?
Interesting movie. Science is kind of like meh.
Oh, no.
They took a few conveniences, which when you really have a think about it, don't pan out.
Awesome. Okay, so would that conclude the segment?
I do believe so.
Yeah, I think we've shot enough holes in it. It's been a sieve at the moment, so use it to wash our greens.
I would be the happiest man if someone reaches out and said, I never knew about Bose-Einstein condensate. That would be awesome. So reach out. Okay, so this concludes our episode. I want to thank you for being with us one more time. I also, and I'm not going to get tired of saying this, I thank you for sticking with us while we were on our break. Yes, we were on a break.
Rose was right.
Just wanted to remind you guys that we are on Discord. So that would be the fastest, easiest way to reach out to us. Is on Discord. So if the invite link to our server is in the description, as well as if you are actually looking at the YouTube channel, there's a QR code that you can scan and you can come into our channel. We have a lot of different channels open on our server that touches various different IPs and topics within the sci-fi genre. So I would find it hard to believe that when you come in, you'll find something missing. But if it is, you can reach out to us and we can make it a thing. We also will encourage you guys to visit our website, sciencefictionremnant.com. This is where we actually post links to all the places that you can find us on, as well as articles. We write. Yes, we write. And Chaos writes too. So if you want to know what he is writing about or what he has written so far, come in and go into sciencefictionremnant.com and let us know what you think about the articles that we have actually posted on that website. And if you are on our YouTube channel, you can just scan the QR code that is on the screen right now. Also, we do have a Patreon. So if you feel like you want to help us out, because things like that that we do is, granted, it's a labor of love, but it actually does cost money to produce. So we really appreciate if you can join in and help us out. And if you cannot, go to that extreme, we also need help with Captain Chaos. Yes, he needs to keep caffeinated, so we need to buy him coffee. So why don't you go to Buy Me a Coffee and get us some coffee for, so we can keep Captain Chaos from snoring. So if you are on our YouTube channel, you can just scan the QR code and you can actually see our very own mad scientist trying to grab our sign here. Awesome. If you want to leave us a message, you could also do that. And we do have a way that you can contact us. You can call 1-305-563-6334. And you can leave a message for us. You can leave a message for any of the hosts. You can leave a message for Captain Chaos. You can leave a message about something that you like us to do or something that you heard us done before. Maybe you have some opinions. Or if you have any topics that we like to discuss, we will actually play it on the show and have a conversation around it. So remember, it is 305-563-6334. And with that, you have no idea how thankful we all are to have you guys with us every week. And again, this is another thing that I don't get tired of saying, how we would not be here if it wasn't for you at all. So we really, really appreciate you guys coming week after week and enjoying the IPs that we enjoy, because this is actually a labor of love. So just remember, reach out to us. We are open to great discussion. And if you'd like to come on the show, just let us know. We'd love to have you on and talk about your favorite sci-fi. So
Bring it on.
Bring it home. So with that, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we see you next week.
Bye.